Everyone's always asking me, it's like, why don't you do more Thaiyaji videos? I'm like, it's 3 days work. Like, that's why. Like,
why are your skits always about your Thaiyaji?
yeah.
Do you actually have a Thaiya?
No, I don't have a Thaiyaji. And this is why.
Fictitious, huh? So nobody can ring him up and be like, Saleh?
The reason I picked Thaiyaji was because
The book tour is going well.
it's been exhausting. Everybody is having such a strong personal, emotional response to it. And then what I hadn't really expected then was what it would mean to say do an event, then do the signings afterwards and then see 30, 40, 50 people. And so I came to understand is that really that Both Not Half is really my own sort of personal expression of it. I think for a long time, I didn't identify as a Sikh.
You felt more Punjabi than Sikh.
I felt very comfortable in identifying as Punjabi. I was like, well, I don't look like, what a Sikh looks like.
When you were telling your parents, what did they feel when you told them, I don't know who I kind of am?
I sent this story to my mum and she was really upset. She said, I didn't think that by sort of raising you so consciously with both cultures that I was giving you a problem.
So in the spirit of the show, yeah, no, listen, it's been a very warm day today. Sir? Kholo. Sir, you might need this, sir.
What's up, people? Welcome to this week's episode of the Indy and Doctor podcast. We are joined by a very special guest. His name is Jassa Ahluwalia. He is an author. He is also an actor. And he's probably the most lucrative guest that we've had to date. And I'm very glad that this friendship has blossomed so quickly in such a short period of time. To give you context, my wife told me to have you on. I wasn't aware of your content. And then she sent me the clip of your famous TEDx talk. And I was like, is this guy based in London? She said, yeah. I said, why don't you DM him? And from the moment we DM'd you to meeting you now, very short. So incredibly happy. Shout out to wifey for that, Sanj. But how you doing, man? Thank you for coming on.
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's been a joy. Yeah.
Mate, the book tour is going well.
Yeah, it's been exhausting, but
I was gonna say, yeah, every time I check your socials, you're out somewhere.
It's been so wonderful, and I think the thing that I hadn't really anticipated, and I think the reason why I've been so tired is that everybody is having such a strong personal, emotional response to it.
Did you expect that?
I guess I sort of hoped for it because, but I sort of wrote it for myself, I wrote the TED Talk for myself. I did the TED Talk really for myself. It was a way of figuring something out for me. And if that has some use to other people, then that's wonderful. But I don't think I'd hoped for it, but I hadn't really expected it. And then what I hadn't really expected then was what it would mean to say, do an event, then do the signings afterwards and then see 30, 40, 50 people who then
taking 30, 40, 50 people's emotions.
Yeah. Like sharing,
outpouring.
like, this is how it's affected me. This is what it means for me. I've had, an adoption agency. A couple of people were like, social workers have been recommending this book as part of our work. We're getting a copy for our library to give out to people, and I've had very early on in the process, I met, somebody also through my Instagram DMs who, the TED Talk had formed part of how they successfully adopted because they used it as a means of it. This is how we would engage with our child's cultural heritage. And that just, I did not expect at all, that sort of level of connection.
That knocks you over quick.
Yeah. And I think I hadn't realized that I do probably need to sort of insulate myself a little bit from that when I'm doing the events and I'm out, because I'm a very sensitive person, as you probably gathered from reading the book, and I do struggle to take all of that on and process it, and often I get to the end of an event and I'm just like, okay,
that's why you're tired.
Go. Yeah.
What do you do to unwind after an event?
That's
after
what
you've had all that.
Yeah.
How do you
What is
decompress?
the go-to?
Oh, I think that's what I've been trying to figure out at the moment. I've recently started. I'd sort of, my meditation practice had really slipped because of all the stresses going on around the time of launch, but I've got back to that. I think sort of like, reconnecting with that sort of limitless peace that sits behind all experience.
Well, yeah,
that's
limitless
been
peace,
That's what I'm trying to like, sort of remain connected to, but also just. It's just like putting a few things in place so that, if I'm doing events and stuff, just making sure that there's somebody there to keep the crowd moving along and it's not because I don't want to, it's just if I'm having like 5 to 10 minutes
with everyone,
that balloon's real quick.
It's a lot of emotion. It's a lot, and then also it just takes forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a combination of I'm trying to be sort of remain present, but also not let my sort of guards down so much that I'm sort of getting emotionally overwhelmed. A couple of weeks ago, I definitely hit a point where I was totally emotionally overwhelmed, and
was it one conversation or just the accumulation?
It was the accumulation. You know, from then till now. I mean, I've had a little bit of downtime over the last couple of weeks to slow things down a bit, but I signed off on the final text and cover while I was in the middle of recording the audiobook.
Okay.
I then went out to Shanghai to do a keynote at the Festival of Education in China. I came straight back. I had like a family wedding. Then it was like the launch. Then it was like a number of events that were stacked up around the time of the launch. And I hadn't put anything really in place to cope with what that was going to be like.
Sounds like you've been in the blender, like emotionally, physically.
It feels like it. And now I'm having to find a new flat as well. So
just add to it,
and my car broke down. That's it. Yeah, and my car broke down as well. So, yeah.
That's why you came on the bike today. Okay.
I thought it was one of those London things.
I thought it was a London thing
cool
as
guy,
well,
man. Coming on the bike.
Living local, it makes sense.
Do you know what I find with what you're describing there? Do you know when you plan things in a calendar?
Yeah.
It all looks possible. Like he'll tell you, my Google Calendar is like color coded and it's like stack, and like my wife relies on it as well. And when I plan things, I'm like, yeah, it's all possible. For example, I got family here over from India, Massi are here. Their daughter is living with us. She just graduated. And so on Friday, just a couple of days ago, we went for like a staycation in Cambridge. Mm-hmm. So I was like, yeah, in the morning, I'll do this errand. I'll fit in an hour and a half gym session. I'll do this, and this. And so my wife was like, and we got an 8-month-old baby.
Yeah.
This isn't going to work. I was like, no, but
I could have told you that for free.
Yeah, but I was like, I've accounted for the time in the calendar. It works, right?
Yeah.
In theory. And then you do all these things and then you're just like, oh my God, man, I'm so tired. But like, when you plan it, you feel so good. You're like, yeah.
Do it all. Yeah, I'm very guilty of that. I'll just stack things up.
Yeah.
And like I hadn't planned in like the decompression time required between events and between interviews or recordings and stuff like that. So I'm getting better at that. I've actually said that I've got like a holiday that a lot of old mates are getting together to go on. Yeah. And I was just looking at it in the calendar. In the calendar, it makes sense.
Yeah.
But I was like, I've just had the most horrendous burnout and I know what the triggers were. And I know that even though it makes sense now and I feel great about it now, when it gets to it, that's not going to be viable. So maybe I'm getting better. Maybe I'm learning.
Yeah, the problem about holidays now is like, I don't know how you holiday, but
not a lot. Don't do much of it.
But if you do, like, is it genuinely a holiday? Like, what's the definition of holiday? Or is it like, I'm going to jam pack even more? Like my wife, right? If it's like we're in England.
Stuffing so much in.
She might sleep
in.
He knows. We go on holiday and my wife becomes this kind of, wakes up at 6 o'clock. Every minute should be counted for in the day. We're going to see everything and da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, look, we get back from a holiday and we're more tired. And it's like,
yeah.
I don't know how it's for you.
That's how my dad used to run holidays when
military time.
When I was a kid. Yeah.
Oh,
so that's me. I like, we did a lot. I saw a lot of the world.
But you never felt relaxed.
But weirdly,
you having a good time. You good.
But weirdly, like the reason I had this sort of this burnout the last couple of weeks with everything going on was because I did go on holiday. I took like an emergency 5 nights. I went to Turkey and I was just
emergency holiday. I like this term.
I like that. I like that. That's nice. That's a good time, man.
And because I could feel myself sort of hitting this point, and I went away 5 nights, and then. But that was what took me over the edge. So I came back because I was like, I'd sort of let go, relaxed. The emotion came out. And then I went into like a really busy week. I had like an event at Waterstones in Leamington.
Yeah.
I had the Festival of Education UK that week as well. And I think I was doing like BBC London, like a breakfast show. So my sleep was all a bit all over the place as well. And my emotions just were a mess. I lost all perspective on what was like rational and logical. And so the fact that when we first started chatting and you were like, let's put the date like this far in the future.
Ahead. You're like, that's workable.
That's great. Works for me.
Very good. Most people are like, let's do it soon. And I was thinking, I can't do it soon. He can't see us kids. We have to book it really far in advance.
Although, you know what it is? It's like, if anybody wants to collab with us, I'm basically the yes man. I'm like, yeah. Because I don't think about the back end at all. That's all him, right? And then recently, and he's like,
me and my lovely brother-in-law are sitting there like,
producer.
Is this Suki? You free to stay? Because he's the guy. If he can't make it, I can't do it. Yeah. Because I can't run all this setup without him.
Yeah.
And he's the house of cards that falls. If he falls, everything goes.
Yeah.
Recently, he said to me, he was like, "Listen, no more guests till the end of the year.
Yeah. I need to catch up on like a backlog of content as
I've
well
actually
to push
broken
out.
now.
Yeah. I think people don't realize how much goes into creating this.
The number of people have to explain. You know, that 1 minute reel you see.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people it goes through, gets done, edit 1, edit 2, edit 3.
Yeah.
That subtitle is wrong. This effect is wrong. That picture's technically wrong. That spelling's wrong. Let me move the hook around here. Like, it's a lot that goes into like a 1 minute piece.
Everyone's always asking me, is like, why don't you do more Thaiyaji videos?
Because it's long.
It's 3 days work. That's why.
I need good lighting. I need a cameraman. I need to reshoot a couple of times, like especially for skits. Skits is a whole other realm.
Exactly. And you got to be punchy.
Because like with the skits, with the Thaiyaji stuff, it's like, I do script it very tightly, so I know whether the comedy is gonna work. But then the comedy really comes together. You have to just trust then the script
and then go with it.
And then it's in the editing.
Then you edit it. You're like,
together,
it's not really hit, and then you may want to do it again. So stress.
Yeah, it's fun.
I wanted to ask some questions about yourself
as well, which is always a stress.
Stress.
Pooni
that should be called the
pooni is it's the intangible. Trying to describe to someone what makes a good pooni and telling them that actually if you don't get the pooni right, nothing else works.
Yes.
Actually, I don't know what the pooni is. What is the pooni?
Oh, right, you know the folding.
The folding, right? Yeah.
But I don't know how you do the pooni, but if you use sparring on the pug at that point, it makes time the pug so much easier.
My dad,
that's probably like the number one hack I've got.
Right. Yeah. So I use my granddad's old pug, and he used to starch them, and that's how he used to just like take it on and off.
Yeah,
because he was like
same as my dad. Yeah.
But I do try and I tie it each time. But
yours is crisp every time you tie it.
Yeah, it's been getting better. Yeah,
very crisp.
It's been getting better. I don't do it regularly enough to. I love it though.
But when you do it,
I feel great.
How's the shoulder pain?
Like the shoulder pain.
Yeah, because as you're tying it, your arms get tired. You're like, you have to take a break.
You know the lard. There's a bit.
Carry on.
There's a bit when you have to retie a lard and you open the lard back and then you're like, rest.
Loosen out the shoulders.
And now I can go again.
Or you know the mouth bit when you're holding up. And you take it off, it's all that full of like
saliva. You're just pure saliva in the pug. You're like, oh god.
You know, I actually is a part of the thing that I don't really show on the social media, but the process of doing it, because I don't wear at the start a pug day to day. The joy I felt the first time I tied it, and the fact that I just tied it sort of from my memory of seeing like my grandfather and uncles and stuff, like how I was like, oh, it's sort of like this, isn't it? I was like, it can't be so complicated.
So you say you never watched a video on it?
I was about to say you didn't watch a pug tutorial.
No, I did eventually to get it better. But if you watch like my first few, I mean the first one, I'm literally, and I felt very conflicted about it because like I didn't have my a pug to hand at the time, but I did have a towel. I had my like a Turkish towel.
Okay.
But the pattern on the towel like reminded me of the fabrics that like my uncles would use, like, you know, like a very sort of
a bindu pug.
Yeah, a bindu pug, like the
one they
like,
quickly tie.
Like
like guys wear now for Jago events.
Yes.
That's the standard look,
which is now very fashionable. Sorry, don't worry, Karen, a second.
And so I was like, you know, I'll just roll with it, because I was like, and this was part of me. That confidence thing of being like, this is a part of who I am, and actually, even though the bug isn't perfect, like I can, I still had to find that confidence to be like, this is okay. I'll just use a better bug down the line.
That's a big thing for a lot of guys. Like now, the neatness of the bug, like you can get lost in that, man. Getting the perfect bug, is like an endless.
And also, like for me, fundamentally, and I know we'll probably come onto this later, but like the idea of the bug is not.
Aesthetic.
Not to have pride necessarily. It's like to have pride, and it's meant to be like a, you know, a symbol of self-sovereignty that is sort of as a means to help destroy ego and destroy pride.
And then you're like,
and then there's
and you're like, this lard, it has to be. If it's not crisp, I'm redoing it. I've redone my bug 6 or 7 times in an attempt to be looking good for a wedding. As Sanj, it takes me longer to get ready than her. Right, because I have to do the bug, then I do the Dadi, then I do the mucha, and she's like, "You're taking the mick." I'm like, "Yeah, I am."
You're special though.
I am high maintenance when it comes to getting ready. I'm sorry.
I mean, if I had Dadis like you guys, though, you're like
necessary.
The only reason I'm so clean at the moment is because I had new headshots done on Friday, and I totally forgot that I'd be doing like anything public facing, and I'm like, I feel very naked.
Let's talk about the book. So I'm halfway through it. Karen's halfway through it, but I got a lot of questions about relationships in the book for yourself. Let's talk about your BG and Grandad. So in the book, you mentioned pieces where you say you interviewed your BG and Grandad and you sat down with them.
Yeah.
And you've got that memory locked in, which I think is a great thing to do. I wish I did that with my grandparents.
Mm.
What did you hear as like a big story that they told you, or what stuck with you most out of it?
Oh wow, there's so much, particularly like the interview that I did with BG, because like it was both me and my sister who did it together, Ramanique, and you know, her memories of partition, that was sort of what we really wanted to capture.
Yeah.
She lived where?
She was in what was then Lalpur, so Faisalabad now, and so her family had chosen to stay, and then in the violence, then made the decision to leave.
Right.
Now, thankfully, the family wasn't separated. There was no sort of horrendous, well, at least that she's shared. But she was very open about most things. Like they managed to, you know, it's all relative, isn't it? But like, they were okay. Family stayed together. They got to safety. But I mean, literally, the house was burning down as they fled.
For most people, kind of our generation, have you seen the film Gadar?
No, I haven't actually.
The Gadar Sunny Deol, there's a train scene of the train that went from Pakistan to modern India and how many people were dead. My Nana ji actually was from Pakistan, and I didn't know this, but we were watching Gadar when he was alive in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And after, he was like, I was on that train and I had to pretend to be dead. He got blood of another person's body.
Yeah.
Like put it himself, pretend to be dead, and then he got out the other side. And he was like, yeah, this is real. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah. I think there's a scene like that is in Mowgli, the Riz Ahmed.
Yes.
Ooh, I haven't seen it. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's this. But so my first experience of seeing partition on film was I think when I watched Bagh Milka Bagh.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, but I want to see it.
And
It's on my list.
yeah, and it was the first time I think because it was like 2014, I think it came out, something like that. Yeah. And it really gave me a sense of what generational trauma meant, because suddenly I saw a scene of events that I have no personal memory of.
Yep.
No sort of like no connection in time necessarily.
Yeah.
But you feel it.
And then I saw it, and this like rush came out of me of emotion, because suddenly it was the first time, you know, there's no video footage, there's very little photography.
Or you've got a story.
It's just story. I did like your imagination, and just seeing, and it's the one scene in particular of like guy on horseback who comes by and he like beheads a guy.
Wow.
And like and suddenly it sort of gave a reality to this thing that was a part of me and my history, and it just sort of came rushing out of me. And it was something that I thought about. You know, I do a lot of like outdoor stuff, like solo hiking and like multi-day backpacking, and like I always think about, those are the things I think about when I'm on, like, you know, the journeys that people made, how far people walked on foot, and it really. I think I said that. What is it? I did a spoken word piece a while back, and one of the lines it says, I said I was dead in 47, but I felt that cut, and that like it's a huge, feels like a huge part of me, and I think that's why we wanted to make sure that we had those memories, I guess, preserved and documented, in some way. And so those stories, particularly like just little details, like the fact that, like when BG left the house, the only thing they took with them was like a big like patila of like koya, and that's what that kept them going over those few days on the journey. And then conversely, it was interesting. So we had that from BG, then from my granddad. Like he was on the India side, and he was saying about how, you know, his school was basically turned into like the playing fields were like used for like for keeping animals and stuff like that, because there was just so much movement. And one of the more funny stories there was like him telling me about when the marriage was being arranged, like he wanted to make sure that he wanted to get a look at her before,
which wasn't common practice back then, right? Like, and then you've seen the old school photos, right? You know, the bride, like now brides like chunnis pinned back, like back then I've seen like even like maybe in my Dadi, whoever it is, the chunnis like fully, you know, like how grooms have sere, right? But the bride, and you're like, who is behind there? Like, what do you even look like, man?
Yeah.
I can imagine that, man. Like, so then?
So yeah, he'd found, so I think it was all sort of in the sort of final stages of being confirmed, and he found out where she was, I think, studying at the time. Was it basically he knew the bus route that she used.
Yes.
So him and a mate, I think, like basically made sure they got a ticket to be on that bus.
Of course he did.
To just like be like, okay, yeah.
I don't
think they spoke. They didn't speak. He just wanted. I think like I think it must have been like a mutual friend or somebody who sort of knew.
Pointing around.
But it's like, oh.
Holy. Oh man.
And
Gulabi journey.
yeah, and it was.
I love it, man.
So the little details like that.
But it's the it's the details.
It was the details.
Detail I find when your grandparents tell you something and they add the detail, it becomes vivid.
Yeah.
When I imagine it, then I'm like, for example, I asked my grandmother about giving birth in the Prind to my dad and my chacha.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, you just do it at home. And or even the funny bit before that, I said, this is how, like, you know, in for Punjabi women generally, chunni sir te honi chahiye. This is like a thing, right? It doesn't really happen here, but in Punjab it still is. But that is like, when you had a pregnancy bump, they used to cover that with chunni. That was the respectful thing. I was like, really? Yeah. And I was like, just, again, we don't see that now. And I was like, wow. And then that was normal. And then I asked her, like, you know, how did you deal with labor?
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, you just screaming it. I was like, oh, okay. You know, when you ask something and you're like, what other answer could there be in it? Like, she's like, no, you're romanticizing it. She was saying, you're thinking it's like really easy. And it's like, no, it's still hard. Yeah, it's just didn't go to hospital. And I was like, oh.
So my granddad was quite, you know, modern for his time in a way. Like when my dad was the first, and this was another detail that came out of those interviews was that how he'd been like reading up on like the latest in like pregnancy science, and they'd made sure they'd like booked a room at like the local hospital that was nearby.
Grandad was well ahead of his time.
Yeah, so he was like, because he was really, he educated himself. He became a teacher, and so there were little details like that which is, you know, I'd never had, you know, imagined having conversations with my grandfather about like his take on, you know, pregnancy health or anything like that.
That's so niche.
Yeah. What was it like showing the footage back to your dad when he saw that? Was he like, did he feel like he didn't know a lot of those details either?
Yeah, there's a lot. So we watched it all actually. So the footage of my grandfather particularly, we watched on the afternoon after his funeral. So a lot of my family hadn't seen some of those. And it was easier because the interview with him was all in English. I spoke to him primarily in English. With BG, it was always Punjabi. And it was really moving because there was a lot of details in there that, you know, a lot of my aunties and uncles, and my dad, hadn't come across before. And, yeah, so it was very moving, and it's also just really wonderful to just, you know, you can't in any way capture the fullness of a life, but to have something to watch back and get a sense of who somebody is. And, you know, like little details like memories of his childhood, going to school for the first time. And he said, and there was a detail that really stuck with me. He said, I can't remember how old I was, but I must have been quite small, because I remember, and it was in the next village along, because I remember he remembers his legs getting wet, which meant that he would have had to have crossed the little stream that was sort of ran between the two villages. And that was like his first memory of going to school. And so, and for me, just like the idea of my grandfather as a toddler, or like as a, you know, a very small child, getting his legs wet, going to school for the first time is just a beautifully specific moment that, like, I don't really know. It just gives me I don't know. Yeah, it's also like, it's sensory, isn't it? You know what it's like to get your legs wet as a kid. It sort of connects you through time. And
I think someone needs to make like this a thing where you do that with elder parents.
So they do. I keep getting targeted on Facebook, man. I don't know if you guys get it. There's people who write books. They'll interview your family members and they produce like an autobiography. It's really good. Yeah. I mean, it's quite expensive, but but video would be like video interviews.
Video interviews, I feel like, will last longer because you get them captured in that
saying
moment.
It in there.
Saying it, it feels more evocative of emotions, I guess.
And this stuff is all priceless, man. literally 2 days ago, I'm sitting with my dad. My daughter's on my lap. I'm looking at my dad, and we're in this museum in Cambridge. And I'm like, Dad, I feel like I understand you more now. And he's like, why? And I was like, because when you're young, you assume as a child that your parents are perfect and are devoid of emotion and are just, immaculate. I was like, now I'm a parent. I get it, man. It's all work in progress. I was like,
you're learning on the fly.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man.
And you were the eldest as well.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard, man. And why BG and Grandad? That's really interesting because, again, you know what's interesting? On our that side, it's Granny and Grandad.
And for me, it's...
But I have Nanny and Nana.
For me, it was Mom and Big Dad because my mum kept calling my mum. My mum kept calling her my mum.
Yeah.
So we called her Mom. And then we called her husband Big Dad. I never called him Nana Nanny. Okay, but then when my Jija was married, and he called her Nanny and my Bubby, and I was like, who's this? Who's Nanny Nana? But then my grandparents were Papa and Bibi.
Right.
But I never knew that it was actually meant to be.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Dadi, Nani, Nana are correct.
To me, it was so normal to call your parents Bibi and Baba. I always thought that was fine.
Whereas for me, when my friend said it, like even my Dadi, right? If I ever call her Bibi by accident, she's like, I don't know how old she's, mid-80s. She's like, I'm not that old. Bibi is a term
feels so old,
synonymous with like white suit, walking stick. Whereas like my Dadi's like, I walk 5 miles a day. Like, I ain't no old woman, right? You know what I mean? I was like, oh, there's a connotation with these words, right?
I think it was because I think my dad called his grandfather Babaji.
Babaji is the other one.
And I think BBG as well. I think it was because, we were taught that it was BBG as kids. That's just what we were taught. Yeah. But we struggled to pronounce the double bubba. So it just became BG.
Yeah.
And
BG.
And the reason I've written it, and I've always written it as the capital B, capital G, was because that's how I'd always visualized it in my mind.
You put it like that. I'm like, that makes so much sense because I would write BEEJI.
Right,
That's how I would say, because JI is always universal, it's JI. Then B, you can't just write BIJI. I'm like, that doesn't read right because that's Bijai. I'm like, BG makes sense.
You know what I think?
Punjabi into English is so
it's so difficult, man.
What's for?
Spell it.
No, spell it in English.
F-U-F-A.
Thank you.
No, it's PH. It's PH. It's PH. It's PH. Because we had this game on my 30th birthday where my nieces and nephews are playing a game. It's called Stop the Bus. Which is where they have categories of things.
Yeah.
And they say, right, name everything starting with a P. Yeah. So give me a name of a place. Give me a name of a family relation. Give me a name of this. And what the family relation was Fufur. So they're like,
my team
PH. And I thought, hang on, no.
No, F. We had Fufur, F.
You had F. I was like, no, it's PH. You're like, no,
it
it's
wasn't
F.
even you. It was your little niece or nephew or someone.
It was my niece and nephew who said it. Then I checked. Then I checked with my mum. Then I checked with my Massi. And they're like, no, it's PH. So I was like, okay,
Fufur is
cool.
F. F-U-F-A-R. That's Fufur.
PH.
Yeah.
Pupper.
I think it's also its pronunciation, isn't it? Like how you...
In Punjabi, it's the Fuffa, isn't it? Fuffer. I'm sure
isn't it that like...
Well, so it should be F-U-F-A-R. That makes more sense.
No. In Punjabi, it's written PH.
Like what's another word that begins with the same...
Papa.
Like
it's not Punjab. No.
Like fal?
Fal, maybe?
Is that the same letter?
Why do you put it like that? What about full?
Guys, we're going to fact check this now.
What about full?
Yeah, problem.
Full as in that.
But so a lot of these things as well. So the reason it's written BG, I think, is because I remember, I can't verify this, but like on the washing machine, the setting that in order for BG to remember which setting it was on the washing machine, it was like they were all labeled by letter and one of them was G. And so she'd written G on the washing machine.
So she knew which one to go for?
Yeah, so she knew which one to go for. And then I think my dad was like, oh, this is funny. And so he put the B in front of it.
BG.
And so in my mind, I think the first time I saw it or visualized it in that way, but it's always been... But my cousins obviously like auntie's kids. It's Nana Nani.
So weird.
But so to be clear, your BG and your Grandad were your Dadi and Dada.
And Dada.
But did you call it on the other side? Was it Nani Nana for you, or did you have different words?
Well, they were my mum, so on my sort of white English side, so that was just
first name
Granny
basis.
and Grandpa.
What, Dave?
Yeah. Jim. Yeah.
I always find that. Well, that level is odd, but even the kind of, they're calling your in-laws. So we had this about like I call my mother-in-law mum.
Right, yeah.
Whereas when we had Tez on, we asked him, like, how come is Amir Khan's documentary and he calls his mum like mother-in-law auntie?
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit weird, isn't it? And he's like, no, but actually in culture, this is quite normal. And then I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, then you have certain ways to use the first name.
Right, yeah.
And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, okay, well, that's just a bit weird. I can't even call my consultants, who now I'm at the same level as them,
Yeah.
like by their first name. I'm just like, it's doctor. I can't do it, man. I just can't do it.
Respect, yeah.
Respect, man.
Big
Somewhat
respect thing.
Mm.
Onto reading and learning Punjabi.
Yeah.
Your way of learning Punjabi, I feel like, is the most wholesome out of everybody's journey that we've spoken to.
5 days on YouTube.
As in, your BG actually encouraged you to speak it, even if your grammar was wrong. She didn't make you feel bad.
Yeah.
Have you heard many stories from others that have shared the experience of saying, my relationship with Punjabi isn't great? How did you harness your energy to make it better for you?
Yeah, I mean, most people I speak to have this experience of, speaking or trying to speak as a child and then just being like criticized, mocked, laughed at, and I was going to repeat criticize, but I mean, criticized again, ridicule, all those words.
Yeah.
But that just wasn't my experience, and it was only really reflecting on it as an adult that I realized that I'd had this sort of gift. And it was only really as an adult that I reflected that, perhaps it was because, BG herself was never particularly proficient with English. She didn't love English. She never imagined moving to the it's funny, that's one of the stories that came out in those video interviews. She was like, I hated English. I
know why? Because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
We learn English, but then I've got a Canadian friend, doctor, clever person, right?
Yeah.
And she's trying to pronounce the Karmic voxel.
Yeah.
And I haven't told her how to say it. She's like, and even, or in Warsaw, how do you say this?
Yeah.
This is a place, right? CALD. Don't say that, but say MORE. What do you call it?
CALDMORE.
Yeah. How would you say that?
Coldmore?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what it should be, right?
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
karma.
Huh?
Karma. Right? And I'm like, English makes no sense, man.
Because he says, I go to Karma Street Gurdwara, and I'm like,
Heck,
I've never heard of that. And then he said Warsaw Gurdwara. I'm like, the road ain't called that.
Yeah, it's not.
Right,
It's not.
yeah.
Because I think that is spelled KARMAN, common. It's not.
There are people called more.
Yeah.
They'll say it like that, but it's like it's karma.
Right.
So English, I understand BG, man.
Yeah.
She's just like, the language makes no sense.
Yeah.
But that was the line that is in the book where she goes, "Mainu ki pata si main England chale jana." That was from that interview that we did. When she said that line, which is brilliant. And I think I don't know, like it was all about. It's just about love, isn't it? Like, it's just communication and connection. Like, that's all it is. Like, you're just wanting to communicate, you're wanting to connect, you're wanting to share.
There has to be a
feel
willingness. We did a reel recently on this, which is the same thing about how if we had a generation like BG who, because they couldn't speak English proficiently, we had to learn Punjabi, and that's a great thing. Now the ROI is great, but then if we're of the generation when we have kids where we can easily speak English with our kids, there has to be a strong intentionality to speaking Punjabi, right, going forward. But then I have even people our generation like, well, why should I learn Punjabi? I was like, well, if you want a proper relationship with your grandparents beyond just like,
but that's not necessary now, because a lot of our parents can speak English as a first language.
Grandparents.
No, but
even like
those kids' grandparents are parents
who
who can speak English to a proficient level in more cases than grandparents.
Yeah.
So that need is becoming less and less. So you have to find a different way to get them involved.
Incentive.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I mean, I think just the richness for me, like, my connection, my Punjabi-ness is so there because of the language. And I talk about this in relation to like national identity and stuff. Language is the framework, is a huge part of the framework of identity.
Yeah.
Now, I also don't think you have to necessarily have full command of a language in order to claim that identity. I think that's wrong. It's exclusionary, and I don't think that's true. But I think it's indisputable that the language is the vehicle through which like identity, culture, and heritage travels. But I don't necessarily think it's just about incentives. I think there are people. I think people want to speak it because they know that it's, you know, it's a part of their heritage. That's something they would like to learn. I think the incentive.
But is it though? Like my experience now around people our age is Diljit, Sidhu have made it cool again. It's like, okay, I start maybe learning Punjabi so I can sing songs.
Right. Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool actually. Maybe I should. And I don't care if that's a vehicle for getting people interested in Punjabi. Great. For some people, it's Sikhi and they want to read Gurbani, so therefore they learn Punjabi. And sometimes it's necessity because you can only communicate in certain things. There are different reasons to get people get into it. But I don't know. Like I have friends now who they can understand Punjabi, can't speak it, and then they have kids. Now they have kids now. I don't know if they can outsource. We're going to talk about Punjabi classes in a bit, but I'm like, okay, but you're not going to speak Punjabi. They're going to look at you like, well, you don't speak Punjabi.
Yeah.
What do I need to speak Punjabi?
But I think the reason we're talking about incentives is because there's a lack of resources. Because there's a lack of resources, you need to somehow have a deeper desire to. If the resources were more available, I don't think you would have to be making these arguments.
What kind of resources would you really?
I mean, just on a basic level, there's no Punjabi Duolingo. Like,
you know, but there are apps, but they're less well known.
Yeah, of course. But like, you know,
it's not on the big ones.
I was listening to one of your previous episodes with Harvey Munda, and you were saying, it's like 7th most spoken language.
Yeah, it is.
How
How
is it not on Duolingo? Why is it that you can learn Klingon and High Valerian?
Yeah.
You know,
Valerian killed me, you know? I'm like, this is a new language. This only came like 10 years ago.
You know, you can learn TV languages.
But not Punjabi.
But not Punjabi. Or, you know, Gujarati, Tamil, Marathi, like any of these languages which are like widely spoken. And so I think there is a need for those resources. I think you wouldn't have to have those conversations so much, I think, or need to provide those incentives so strongly if it was more available. And this is the thing lots of people have asked me is like, you know, what I'm raising kids, you know, whether they're mixed or not, you know, we're raising kids with a cultural background that is different to, you know, the dominant British culture. How do we raise our kids to like have that connection? Yeah. And it's been wonderful at a few events where my mum's actually been in attendance because it's great. Like my mum will just answer all those questions. And then it's like,
shout out mum.
This is how you do it.
And I realized that actually people just want to hear from my mum, not from me.
Yeah.
Perfect.
But what she's always said, because this was, and the reason I defer to her is because this was a conversation that, you know, my Punjabi granddad, like asked her this question very directly.
You said this in the book,
like before, like my parents got married, and you know, my mum sort of saw it as her duty, really, to give us access to our heritage, culture, language, all
Which
of that.
Which you did, man.
But that's the key word there is access, is having it available. It's not that it should be a duty or that you should be. It's just got to be available. Because actually, we go through life, we try on different identities. We're all trying to figure out who we are in this very complicated world, and we have to do that for ourselves. And if it's not available, it becomes very difficult to then.
The barriers are too much. Yeah,
I do think there's different ways of teaching kids as well. So even in class now, how you teach kids in the education system is very structured. So it's like, I'm going to write things on the board.
Yeah,
you're going to write it down. And then I've taught you. Then you're going to go and do some sums in maths. But some kids need that back and forth. Some kids need to try different ways because no one thinks the same. And in Punjabi, because the resources are so old, and you've got that same Punjabi Made Easy book.
Oora oot.
Exactly. But that doesn't hit. It doesn't hit for kids who don't have that attention span. So you have to mix it up and give them games to get them involved.
Yeah.
Now, when you were learning how to read and write Punjabi, and you were doing it with your granddad, how did you find it interactive for yourself? Because you were saying that you found that quite boring reading the same Ura Era.
Yeah. Well, because also it just would never go in. Like I wouldn't actually learn anything.
Yeah.
And it was only when I found that sort of series of videos on YouTube. Sorry?
Yeah, the channel that you found.
Yeah.
What's the name of the channel? Do you remember?
Baru Sahib.
Yeah, BHORA.
I think it's BARU.
Okay.
Baru Sahib.
Okay. Baru Sahib might be that one then.
But like, I think it's connected to the Kalgidar Society or something like this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like fast track, learn Gurmukhi in 5 days, and I was just like, this can't
no
be
way.
right. No way.
They're quite scary, man. After 5 days, he comes out, he's like, "Ye kaun God?"
You've learned it, baby.
Because that is everything, right?
Yeah.
So he's like,
Yeah.
you've learned everything in 5 minutes.
Yeah. But it was amazing because actually the way in which that video, sadly those videos are in Punjabi. They're basically for people who can speak and understand Punjabi to a degree, who want to be able to like read and write. And and I realized that if I wanted to be able to maintain, so just quick backstory is that I'd gone to India in 2014. I had a real sort of crisis of confidence in my Punjabi because I realized I didn't have the capacity in my Punjabi to sort of have deep conversations around sort of like ideas and thoughts and feelings.
It was just conversational.
Sorry?
It was just conversational.
Yeah, it was just
Punjabi?
conversational, but like, when the conversations veered into, like, so how are you feeling about your like parents' divorce and stuff like that with like family? Like, I can't like communicate that stuff because I don't have the vocabulary. And I realized, and I came back and I was, I had a bit of a moment there where I was like, I suddenly felt like, well, once all these, it was fine then because all those aunties and uncles, they've seen me since I was like tiny.
Yeah.
So there's an inherent like, knowing, belonging, sense of connection. I was like, what happens when that generation dies? And am I going to be left untethered? And I was like, well, I need a command of if I can read and write Punjabi, then I can sort of interact with like, dictionaries and literature and,
vocabulary goes up.
Yeah, I can sort of connect with this, a community beyond, my sort of immediate family. Yeah. And so learning to read and write was a part of this desire to, because I think I'd convinced myself that my Punjabi would only ever get worse. that I'd learned it as a kid and therefore the entire journey of my adulthood would be just like a slow decline because my grandparents would die. I wouldn't have the chance to like speak it as often as I did and all that. But then I had this like flip in my thinking where I was like, I switched out from thinking of this nostalgic longing for my lost childhood towards a much more front-footed, I can forge my own future and it can become better actually. It can become
responsibility.
And so I was learning these, I started on these videos and the way in which they taught them, it was like you just got I think it was haha, and then it went through all the different vowel notations.
So the sounds you get.
Like ha no karna ha, like and it went through all the different.
I still get mixed up with a Bihari, a Sihari,
longy shorty,
and the one on top and the two on top as well.
I
get those four mixed up because they're four different E sounds.
And
it screws with me every time I see it. I have to really second guess it. Yeah. Then I'm like, okay, I know that Gelle has two on top, so that's my baseline. So I'm like, Gelle is that, so put that out the way. It's not that one.
I have a few things like
that. It's like, okay,
and
then how do I say that one? That's a bit difficult. So I have to think, where's my baseline here that I can compare it against? Then I find that, then I stick it in, then I go. But that takes me about 20 seconds. And that's how I'm thinking, is this worth continuing?
It still takes me forever. I have that with the Sahari and Bahari, it's the word titali. Because you've got
which one's titali?
Titali is butterfly. So
no. I mean, is that a Bihari or Sahari?
Well, I can't actually remember which one's Sahari and Bihari.
Longy shorty, man. Just talking about
but you've got one at the start with the tit, and then at the end you got the li. So I know which one is which.
I like that. Titali.
Both in the same word.
And then I think with the Hora, it's like, is it Lahore? Has it? So whenever I see that, I go, what's the sound? Lahore, or like. Then I go,
yes. I'm
we
so
have
glad
to
I'm
do
not
that
alone
live
thinking
translation
this.
in our head.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better. Thank you.
The idea is that it takes me forever, and I'm super slow with it. But it was amazing. So suddenly, after 5 days of doing that process. Because doing that process, I realized that actually that first line of the Punjabi alphabet, which is all vowel sounds, you don't really use those letters much because they appear in very specific circumstances, but you hardly use them. So you spend ages learning Ura'u.
And you're like, how often do you see like Ikonkar?
And then like you literally never see Ura anywhere.
No.
And when I do see it, I never know how to use it.
Era is never used. It's Ganna. That's always used more way often as like an A sound. So I'm thinking, hang on, why why we learn it this way?
But that's how I learned it, was with those videos, and then thankfully the fact that Google Translate exists and has the Gurmukhi in there, like I just sort of mishmash it around. I use sort of a bit of Google Translate. I use like the online Punjabi dictionary, listening to your show, like I've discovered Punjabipedia. I didn't know that. Oh,
Takriban was one.
He tried to use it today. We were coming on the train here, and I was like, he in his head he's thinking about coffee. again.
Right, coffee.
And I was like, no, it's not that. It's taqreeban approximate. And he's like,
Yeah,
oh,
so I was like, oh, wrong context, sorry.
But Indy telling the time when we do our live show.
Yeah,
I've told him I'm going to bring a clock out and we're going to move the handles on the clock. Right? I'm like, Indy, what's the time?
Yeah.
And he's just like,
You taught me one today for like 25 minutes past 1.
No, it was 7 minutes to 1:30.
Yeah, 7 minutes to 1:30. But obviously, it's not. You can't say 1:30, so it's dead. So you're like, okay, dead. Sorry, dead. And you're thinking, okay, you have to add that in,
ਵਜਨ ਨੂੰ 7 ਮਿੰਟ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ.
which is odd because
It's complicated, right?
it's mad.
So unnecessarily specific.
ਇੱਕ ਸਤਾਈ, like, you know, it's just
That is very specific. Just say 123, buddy.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, a mic check.
Yeah,
Oh,
whereas
it's
the
pretty
real, then you got Thaiyaji as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then his funny one was, so what's the logically, well, not logically, actually, it's not logical, then 3:30, the Indy like, it's, what do you say?
Huh?
What do you say? I know what the right one is back. What was your wrong version? No,
Sada do baje.
yeah, he was like, 2:30.
Yeah. Why are you adding the Sunday back in basically?
Yeah. 3:30 baje. No, you say Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
Yeah, like owning the 3.5. My 3.5.
But I have corrected it now to everyone.
But yeah, reading Punjabi.
I forgot which one's Pone.
Sorry?
Pone 2.
Pone do.
Pone 2. Quarter 2.
Quarter 2. Oh, Pone.
Again, when I say Pone,
Yeah.
I have to do some Pone 2. It's going 2.
Pone. Oh, yeah.
And then
See?
Sava after.
Sama, okay,
Sama
yeah,
after.
fine. I don't. Yeah, I used to use that a lot more when I was speaking to Bibi because she would use that a lot. I had this like with like numbers. I did learn, and I think I forgot most
To
of
what
them.
number?
Like all the numbers up to 100.
Oh, wow.
Ooh,
Okay.
you knew all to 100.
Oh, yeah,
I know
I-
up to 30. That's
Like,
like.
I basically I learn one every year with my birthday.
Yeah, I am trying the
This
same.
is
I'm
my
trying the
birthday.
same. I'm trying.
But I used to struggle with this like in India. So I'd be like playing with my mates in the gully, cricket and everything. All the conversation, all the banter, everything totally fine. Then they'd be like, what's
Numbers.
the score? And I'd be like, oh, 63. I mean,
Punjabi
tough, man.
ads when
Yeah.
they do the phone number.
oh yeah,
The
like,
phone number
oh
one's
my
blowing
God.
away.
Because I don't know how they take 2 numbers or 3 numbers, but you hear
Yeah.
it. That's B, Pachi, and I'm like, whoa. I was like, just say normally, man.
yeah.
I can't get it, man. I actually, so the way I got my reading better is, so one of my friends, the hukam naam that comes out every day from Handar Sahib, there's like one tuk from that.
Yeah.
So before you used to go to bed, me and my wife, she's really good, A level in Punjabi.
Oh wow.
And so she'd be there and she's like, you're saying this wrong, And I started to get confident, but you get confident and then you overcompensate. And I used to say the wrong words, but be really confident about it. And then say, she'd be like, no. And then the other thing is hard is, I don't know if you've ever had a birthday card written to you in somebody who can write Punjabi, because it's not broken up.
I've
It's
never
all
had
like,
that.
so my daddy did that. Yeah. So my daddy
There
wrote
aren't
one.
spaces, are there? It's just written.
There's not all, like everyone, it's not neat like font. So it's all like, they're their own way of writing Punjabi, much like how we write in English.
Yeah.
You can't read it sometimes. And so there's a video my sister's got of me, I think it was lockdown COVID, and we were reading this card and basically the word was Vahiguru, which you should know.
Yeah.
And I was there and she's got me camera going, Vahiguru. Like this, and then my sister's like, "Inna tu path karda."
It's not wait up.
I was like, got it. मैं पंजाबी आंदी मैंने. Yeah.
So my mum learnt to read.
Did she?
Like, yeah, that was like her party trick. Like she would go to India,
Yeah.
like with my dad, and she could like read
signs.
she would read like the
She could
newspaper.
read the newspaper, yeah.
But
And
she couldn't understand it.
But she could read
But
it.
you can
But she
read
could
it.
read it.
Yeah.
And then there'd be funny things that, it'd come up. It'd be like, what's that word? And she'd be like, I don't understand. She's like, yeah, you do know. It's like, no, I don't. I can read it. I just don't understand it. I know. A camera.
Yeah. You're like, what's a camera? And you're
Yeah.
like, camera.
We had this. We looked up avocado. So
Yeah.
what I didn't know is there are obviously some things which aren't native to Punjabi. Therefore, there's no Punjabi word for them.
Right, yeah.
Avocado is one of them.
Avocado,
Avocado. Avocado.
Avocado.
That's it.
Avocado.
Yeah, that's what it is.
because it isn't available in India,
Yeah.
they just
There's no word
make
for
it
it.
up. And they're like, yeah, we'll
Yeah,
just
that
take the
makes
English
sense.
version and add the
Yeah.
Punjabi accent. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
I mean, I don't imagine avocado is an English word either. Like, is it?
Probably not.
Like,
Wouldn't be surprised.
Or like jug. Jug is jug.
Jug.
Yeah, and I was like, here's the one that always throws me. I'll describe it. You guys guess what it is.
Go on.
It's a No, it's not. We think it's a vegetable. It's a fruit.
Tomato.
Right. But that's the
Tomato.
real Punjabi for tomato. Is tomato?
Tomato.
And I thought, oh, we just
I
say
can't
that
help but
desi
say
way.
it every
Yeah,
time I get one
yeah.
out of the fridge.
You had to get the little rumble at the end.
I was like, no, Indy, there must be a real word. Then we looked
It's
it up.
not a
It was in
real
that Punjabi Made Easy book. And I was like, Indy, do you know tomato is tomato?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
That blows my mind.
When
man.
you were rushed to hospital with the appendix.
tomato to
And
appendix.
the,
As
tomato
you
to
do.
appendix. Listen, I've got to keep this going. Huh? With the appendix rupture, He's obviously a doctor, so he's like, yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Very
read that and I
serious.
was like, you were basically peritonitis, overwhelming sepsis. Like this is not a joke, man. Like appendicitis is one thing. Appendix is about to rupture, big problem. The fact that you were young meant you compensated very well. Had you been older with more comorbidities, that would have been catastrophic.
What did you say to the guy exactly when you were
I
swearing
mean,
at
so
him?
it actually did rupture, which is why.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah. So it's free fluid in your abdomen, which we call peritonitis, which if we don't sort it out, mortality is 50%. Like, this is not a joke. So when I read that, I was like, you're fine, man. I read that, I was like, oh,
You know what?
shit,
I
man.
was aware that it was bad, and I was aware that my life was sort of
Barely
at risk.
bad. Yeah.
But I think having like a professional, like,
Yeah, it's a bit worrying now.
Yeah,
very
it
bad.
was a grim experience, that whole thing. But yeah, like I say, the worst bit of it was that I got lost in the system.
You are not just like when I was reading, listening to it.
It
That's
wasn't
basically
just
what I was like,
was it?
you
It was
cannot
your
be just
So at
previous
that
name.
point, and I've sort of played with the truth a little bit in a few talks that I've done, just because explaining the whole Jaswinder Jassa thing has been so much backstory that I've usually omitted it. But in the book, you get the full story, which is at that point, my legal name was Jaswinder. Now, my name has always been Jassa Ahluwalia. That was my name from day one. That was the name that my parents gave me. But for some reason, my grandfather,
Dadi, yeah.
he was like, it's not Punjabi enough. And
I mean,
how can Jassa Ahluwalia
is the most
He's
Punjabi.
like, it's
He's
a
more
nickname.
Punjabi than
Isn't
Ali's,
the
man.
real name. That's what he's thinking. He's like,
He's
it's the real
thinking-
name.
It's not Avinder, Preet,
Yeah,
Jeet.
yeah.
And
I'm so
so
happy that generation's gone now, by the way.
Yeah.
No, I love that, man.
Bro.
Inder.
You're Veer, but how often do you use that name?
Inderveer. Love it.
No one calls you that.
Huh?
Indy.
No, mum, dad.
Yeah, formal.
No, actually, mum, dad, Jija, weirdly. He always calls me that. So calls me Indy. Sanj,
Cool guy Indian.
Sanj, when she's angry, calls me Indy.
There's a way
So she
does-
says
there's
it
a way she
abruptly
does-
because she's like,
Indy.
Indy! I'm like,
Yeah.
ooh, I'm in trouble. Inderveer. I am two ends of a name put together. And when Sanj told me that broke my heart. I was like, wow, I've never heard someone say that to me before. Shit, that really hurt.
But your name, you're a Lord Warrior.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, it doesn't fit with your name.
It doesn't fit the description,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
What did just mean? Just I mean.
Jassa.
Yeah.
The actual meaning of it.
Yeah, it must be.
I
meaning.
don't.
That's an interesting about thing. Our
That's so
names have
funny
meaning,
because
don't
most
they?
people don't use. Most people just want to double check that I know who Jassa Ahluwalia was. It's like
Yeah, the
everybody's
real
like
Jassa Singh.
primary concern.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
do you know? I'm like, yeah, it's been my name forever.
name's
like,
it is my
name. The actual meaning of it, I'm not.
We will look it up.
I
We'll
mean,
look it
I
up
feel
after.
like one of your listeners will probably be.
They probably
Someone comment and tell us, yeah?
Well,
Thank you.
Just
well on it.
matalab ki hai.
But yeah, so it was just Jaswinder legally
Hmm.
at that time because my grandfather, basically, my mum, my parents, my mum was exhausted. She'd just given birth. Like my dad's like trying to figure out how to be a dad. Like I didn't have a name for ages because they were like hadn't figured out.
Oh, you must have had one of those holding names though.
Yeah.
Like Chotu.
It got to the point where like the hospital were like, it's a legal requirement. You need to give your child a name.
You were baby Ahluwalia.
Yeah, I was baby Al.
Yeah.
I was, yeah.
Baby Al.
Al, yeah.
Oh,
Al was
Baby
like one of
Al.
my dad's nicknames.
Okay.
So Jassa Ahluwalia was agreed. Then my grandfather was like, it needs to be more,
This
Clear Punjabi.
yeah. And so Jaswinder was put on there, but it was never. It only ever been my name on like exams, forms, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And we were in the hospital, and like before my appendix was ruptured, they were like trying to find me, and I was like totally out of it. I could barely speak, and but I could hear my name. Like it was about sort of late morning, and they were like Jaswinder, like where is he? He was brought to this ward. And they were like pulling back curtains. I could hear them going. I was like, it's all right, they'll get to me eventually. And they pull back my curtain. The South Asian doctor looks at me and Jaswinder, no. Then moves on to the next. And I'm like, what is going on? So then I muster all.
Look
at the cara.
Blindly
mustered all the strength
could
I
barely
could.
talk.
I was like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And then the
That's
doctor
what
comes.
Yeah.
The doctor comes back and like opens it and it's Jaswinder. And I'm like, yeah. Jaswinder Ahluwalia. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, my name's literally on the boards. Like,
Look properly.
and they were like, oh yeah, we were looking for an Indian. And it's like, almost as if it was like an accusation. Like I'd been hiding from them or something.
Cheating na karta.
So it was really strange to feel like, in a moment of when I really needed to be identified.
Yeah.
I wasn't identifiable
Yeah.
because of people's ideas of what a name meant. And which is not to say that Jassa's any like less Punjabi or Indian or Sikh or whatever. It's just that I think Jassa what I love about it, and the reason my parents chose it was because it is both incredibly specifically Sikh Punjabi, but also has a degree of, it's quite enigmatic. Like if you're not familiar with that history, you might not necessarily know where the name Jassa comes from. And I do get a lot of like well-meaning white people being like, is it pronounced Yassa? Thinking it's some sort of like Scandinavian. You know, there was briefly I think a basket at IKEA that was called Jassa.
Claim to fame.
But yeah, so
when you said you called him every insult under the sun, what did you call
him?
him?
That was the porter. So yeah, so the porter then came along. So that wasn't the only experience. So yeah, the porter came to then, once my hand ruptured, and they were like, okay,
it's quite serious now.
It's now very serious, and now we should get him into theatre. The porter came to collect me and literally refused to move my bed.
Was he Punjabi?
Because you just didn't think
he wasn't Punjabi. I'm not sure what his background was. He just refused to move it. It was like, there's no way the name corresponds with this person, even though I was there being like, yeah, it's me. And I was, I just didn't have the energy to explain my backstory. Like, that's the thing.
So at that point, you're like, let me just call you everything under the flipping sun, man. Lelo, take it.
In Punjabi though.
Which has venom.
I mean,
when you say Punjabi, it hits.
We've just had this whole conversation about why Punjabi is, like a cool language, but swearing in Punjabi versus English, like, there's just a different level, man. Like, and it's so expressive as a language,
Yeah.
Even when I slipped up the stairs earlier, I went, oh, did he pan? And I was like, but that's default. I didn't even mean to do that. It just came out. And I was like, I don't know why I do that, but it's just there, isn't it? It comes out.
There was a lot of
PC
base.
PC, yeah.
Loads of PCs. Loads of PCs.
Loads of PCs.
Loads of PCs, man.
PC, MC, yeah.
Everything.
Yeah, there was
Then he listens, he's like, oh, you passed the qualification test, well done. Now you will be seen.
Yeah.
It would have been a lot easier if the guy had been Punjabi, but I think he just thought that I was clearly very highly medicated.
Yeah, of course.
And to be honest, like, there are people in the NHS who have weird and wonderful conditions where they pretend to be other people. So it's not unheard of.
Right, yeah.
But I guess...
it was literally on my name tag on my wrist.
Like, come on, how many more identifiers do you need, man?
So it was a grim experience, but it was a really formative experience. Well, like I say in the book, that was a moment where I left the hospital determined to assert my identity in the world and to really claim my identity fully for myself, because I was like, I never again wanted to have that feeling of invisibility. And both not half as an idea was really much, it was me raising my flag and being like, here I am, this is who I am. I sort of refused to be.
But that's so jarring, isn't it? Like, for someone to just look at you and be like, you're not Jassa. Oh, you can't be Jassa.
You can't be
Jassa, right? And it's just like
it doesn't compute in the head.
I am Jassa.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, like, no one ever really has to think about, I have to prove who I am, or I have to convince myself I am really this person.
Yeah.
But you had that really, like, jarring experience.
I think the reason people connect with that story though is because I think people do have this feeling of invisibility a lot. Just that is a very literal, stark example of it. I think it's a very common experience.
But they have like subtle ones. So for example, my wife Sanj, she turns into a meeting, they're like, I'm expecting a man. And she's like,
right,
my name's Sanjay. I don't really know what else I can really say to you. All Punjabi names are unisex.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to say to you, mate, but I'm Sanjay.
It's bizarre the confidence with which people say this stuff as well.
Casually to her, yeah.
Okay, I thought you would be a man.
Yeah.
What do you expect me to say to that?
Exactly. What do you expect?
I think people do really relate. Yeah, exactly. And I think even in just like in more, even in very subtle ways, the idea of a lot of British South Asians feeling like are they South Asian enough, and do they?
I feel that a lot all the time, just because I can't speak Punjabi to a good level, and I'm making content with Doctor in Punjabi for the Desi people. But there's so many people,
which is incredible. I think your openness about it is.
But there's so many
wonderful.
people who tell us in DMs in private saying like, "Thank you, man. Like, I'm the same as you. I just don't have the balls to say it." And I'm like, I don't really think I'm that brave or anything. I just think I'm doing what I want with one of my best friends, and that's a nice vehicle to channel the message that we want to put across. And I'm taking lessons to try and improve on my Punjabi, and I'm trying to read more. Like, I'm taking lessons now through Punjabi Pathways, and I joined a Zoom call, and it's me and 7 other Nyane in Canada and America, and they're playing like Punjabi speaking games, and I'm sitting there like, Okay, I feel really young, but equally, I kind of like this because this is the kind of teaching I wanted as a kid.
Yeah.
And now I'm having it, and it's making more sense to me. So I'm thinking, okay, that's a nice little thing.
So when I was learning with the reading stories with my
with your granddad,
my granddad, they were kids' stories. They were children's stories because that was like to have that, you need that sort of basic level. You need to it's almost like you need to get back to that childlike mindset to absorb. And I think more formal structures can be useful, and it'd be wonderful for those resources to be available. But I think also sort of embracing that childlike
play.
Yeah, play is like it's a great place to
when
be
you
in.
were telling your parents about going on this journey to make both Mahath and going on this journey of self-discovery, what did they feel when you told them, I don't know who I kind of am, or I don't know how to balance both of these, or feel like I'm connected with both? Because every parent feels like they've done a bang up job with their kids, and they're like, everything's perfect. But for you to have this kind of journey so late in life in their eyes, where they're thinking you would have done this earlier, how did they take that conversation?
So I'm sure you guys will be familiar with this, but like, so a lot of these more sort of emotional conversations, not really the conversations I have with my dad so much.
Correct. Yeah.
But mum, yes.
Yeah,
but mum I have it with,
more with my mum, and I remember. So my first way in which I started exploring this was I wrote a sci-fi short story as a way of trying to like express this idea. It was and I sent that story to my mum. And sort of the concluding lines of that short story was about this character who suddenly found himself sort of suspended between two worlds and sort of felt like both present and absent within them. And
she got the metaphor.
Did you preface it to mum? Did you say this is why, or did you just leave it?
No, I said,
what do you think?
I said I've sort of been working on this as a bit of a thought experiment. It was in response to, I'd just been to a Punjabi wedding, and it was my first real experience. My sister pointed this out to me, that, my first real experience of feeling othered, where for me, Punjabi weddings had always been places of like community
comfort. And you sounds like you do a lot of Bhangra as well, man.
Yeah, the Bhangra.
We're gonna have to, guys. We have to see some of this Bhangra.
That video, by the way, that video of you as a kid dancing
with Ramals,
that set my heart on fire, man. When I saw it, I thought this is the cutest thing ever. When you hugged your uncle at the end, I shed a tear. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, that is so pure. And the fact that your dad recorded it as well, because that is so uncommon to have a video camera back then filming things. Yeah. My parents never had that. I wish they did, but they didn't. They had photos
fearless,
instead.
man.
It's funny, like looking back at that footage. It's like at the time, it's just family videos, and now it's like it feels like you're like anthropological sort of study material.
It's amazing, man.
But so I sent this story to my mum, and I was like, a bit of a thought experiment. And then I saw her about a week or so later. I was like, oh, what did you make of it? And she was really upset. And she felt like she'd somehow messed up, that she didn't and I think this is exactly how she phrased it, was like, she said I didn't think that by sort of raising you so consciously with both cultures that I was giving you a problem. And it took me a while and that was really hard to hear, but what I realized, and what I've since been able to sort of speak to her about it, is that she didn't give me a problem. Is that my parents did such a good job, my grandparents also as well, because I sort of grew up between my parents and my grandparents.
Yeah, because you were living with them.
Coventry, wasn't
you? Living with them for like the majority of the weeks, weren't you?
Yeah. So I started school. Coventry Council wouldn't let me start school until the following year, but my grandfather's taught in Leicester at primary school, and they would take me on that start that year. So it's sort of I was living in Leicester during term times with my Punjabi grandparents, and then like weekends and holidays, and my parents would visit during the week.
Which is technically illegal now, because when you register a child in an area, you have to register them to the home address, and then they get located to a school within the catchment. If you try and do this registry thing where you flip to an area where your parents are in a good catchment of a good school, that's actually illegal.
Is it?
Yeah. I found this out. I was like, I didn't know that.
It
happened, didn't it? Right? But now it's like, you can't do that anymore.
And then I kicked down the door. So this is actually it's a sting. But so, I forgot where I was. But she,
so your mum's reaction,
my mum was like, she felt like she'd sort of messed up, and I was like, no, actually, you did an amazing job. That actually I managed to get to my early 20s without really thinking about this, because I had this deep felt sense of my bothness, my wholeness,
and seeing no separation.
Yeah, seeing no separation. It's not, even though I did use the language of half, that was just, I used the language of half because that's the language that I'd been taught.
Yeah.
But I never actually
like half
felt.
caste.
Yeah, like that sort of inherited language. So, but I genuinely, even when we studied like the poem Half Caste by John Agard at, was it Agard? I always forget which one it is. But,
Nearly this is what you
yeah.
need.
See? And then, and I remember like, I knew that in order to pass my exam, I sort of had to argue that it was offensive and all of that. But for me, I was just like, oh, half caste, a label that sort of who I am. And but because I was growing up in in Leicester, a very mixed city, I had my primary school, my turban wearing grandfather was like, a teacher at the school. So my identity was never something I had to explain.
Yep.
I sort of got to my 20s without ever really feeling half.
And Leicester is such a unique place to live in the UK.
Yeah.
Where so many cultures are mixed together. And you probably think as a kid, oh, all of the UK is like this.
Yeah.
But then when you step out, you're like, nope.
It was only in my 20s that I realized that like the Diwali celebrations in Leicester are like some of the biggest outside of India.
Yeah.
For me, they were just standard. So like there was no there was no sense of that being like sort of special or remarkable or in any way. It was just like, well, it's Diwali, so yeah, you shut down half the city and you let out like all the tobacco you can find. Like
on the road, at the cars, that's it.
Yeah, you turn on all the lights, the shops are open until 2 a.m. and you go. So that's what, that was my norm. And it was only then, my sort of adult life that I was like this sense of feeling like I wasn't enough, and particularly because, the world of casting and acting, like where appearance and everything is just a huge part of how the work is sort of, how you get work. And, but anyway, coming back to that thing with my mum, it was like, it was just quite upsetting for her. And I think that was, but what was wonderful and what we've come to understand was that, it was because it was upsetting because she'd done a good job. It was upsetting because actually what was upsetting was not anything she'd done or anything I'd done. It was that the world was sort of set up in such a way as to not allow me to exist fully and wholly as both.
0 or 1, isn't it? It's just binary. It's just this or this.
Yeah, you're this or this. And this is why the second half of the book like really expands beyond my sort of personal experience to be like, how does this idea of this non-binary mindset of like this non-dualistic mindset, this fluidity, this multiplicity, this wholeness, how does that influence other spheres of our lives? And, I get into like national identity and what does it mean to be British, and also like ideas of like gender and sexuality, and the way in which my experience as a mixed heritage person and both not half really was an education for me in like the politics of trans liberation and non-binary gender identities, and also then into the politics of class and like how both not half made me a trade unionist as I sought to find a way to have political agency, and understanding that actually really inequalities are class-based. It's all to do with economics and finance.
When you boil it down, it does come to class plays a big role, but it's hard to quantify.
Well, I think this is a deliberate tactic that's been used by those with wealth and power, is to sort of like push class out of the conversation, make it about identity. You can set identities against each other. And then you sort of break down and you lose solidarity. Yeah. And so the journey of both not half for me was like because I thought the only way I could have a voice politically was to leverage my mixed heritage identity. So I stood for election to the Race Equality Committee within my union and campaigned on issues of mixed heritage casting. And I've done great work in that area, that I'm very proud of. But the education in that was to realize that actually there's a great Stuart Hall quote, which is that, race is the modality in which class is lived.
Race is the modality in which class is lived.
So race as an experience is an expression of a fundamental class inequality. Racism was invented as this sort of intellectual technology to justify slavery and the subjugation of people in the colonies. And really underneath all of that, once you start talking in terms of class, like you start to see the parallels and experience. You understand why, a particular fight is aligned with another fight. And so that was a big part of the journey as well. And then ultimately, it comes back to my relationship with spirituality and Sikhi. And
what is that like now for you at the moment with your relationship with Sikhi? How does that feel for you?
It's joyous. It's wonderful. It's I've really come to, I think for a long time, I didn't identify as a Sikh. I would sort of be like, I've got Sikh heritage, culturally Sikh.
So you felt more Punjabi than Sikh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt very comfortable in identifying as Punjabi, but for a long time, I was like, well, I don't look like, what a Sikh looks like. And, but I started deepening my knowledge and understanding. I was sort of trying to figure out, what was it? I came across one of like Satpal Singh's videos on Twitter, Nanak Naam.
Yep.
And the way in which he spoke, it was like one of those like very clickbaity titles. It's like Guru Nanak Dev Ji did not believe in God. And I was like, what? A guy in like a Damalla saying
like, got ya.
Yeah. And it suddenly, and I was watched that out of curiosity, and I was expecting, a video about, be a good Sikh, wake up early in the morning, like do all your part and all that. But what he was explaining was that, this idea of Vaheguru Ik, oneness, the sort of the all-pervading oneness of the universe, non-duality, the lack of distinction, separation between the self and the other. And I encountered all of these ideas not long before I articulated both not half. And I hadn't made the connection between those two until it came to writing.
So it felt natural at that point because you've been through this journey already.
Yeah.
And you're like, I didn't know
I
know that my Dharam was actually saying a similar message.
That's it, yeah.
And it clicks.
And so I came to understand that both not half is really my own sort of personal expression of it. And and actually there was no
that's
mind
but that's a great way to say it though. Like it's a great expression of ik, and I'm like, damn.
And it's why the final chapter is called One, Not Both.
Yeah.
And I came to understand because it was also like I'd never really gone direct to Gurbani. Like I'd gone to like the Gurdwara Punjabi school where you'd like been drilled in Mool Mantar. So I knew it by heart, but I didn't know what it really meant.
You didn't know the words and the meaning
context
of the words.
And where it comes from and why.
Yeah. And as I started to then, I did like Satpal's he's got a whole lecture series on each body of Japji Sahib, and I just worked through it from start to finish. And every body I was like, this aligns like this idea of and actually the more I studied it, the more I felt sort of comfortable because it describes a very sort of diverse outlook. It allows for multiplicity. It's there are lines that it's like, some people experience it this way, some people experience this way, some people.
And there's not one right way.
Yeah, there's no. As you said, there's no one
right way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sikhi is a game of love. There's a beautiful book in Tarprasad Soya, which comes part of Nityanam. Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj says, "Jin prem kiyo, tin hi prab payo." Only those who have loved God will find God. Whether they're Sikh, non-Sikh, no Dharam, doesn't matter. If you love Rab, you'll find Rab. But for me, the beauty of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's philosophy is, so then your next question was, well, how do I love God? If you want to love God, love His people, because He lives in all of His people. And for me, that is the tangible expression of Sikhi. So the Seva and the Simran, and the Simran is a very personal thing. In meditation, you can go deep, spiritual points where you lose what you said. Vaheguru Guru Mantar hai jab home ko, you lose the I. And there is no separation between you and the one. You lose the sense of breathing where you are, body, everything. You just align completely. But then here in the world, we're not told as Sikhs to go and meditate in mountains and just be devoid and integrate, right? And the seva for me is go and help people, and that's the expression of Sikhi for me.
I think that's I think a big thing as well that changed my relationship was, and which gave me then the power to be like, I am a Sikh. was discovering the history that sort of predates the sort of, well, no, actually not just predates the formation of the Khalsa, but like that predates the idea of when you get like British census making in what am I talking about, the like the Singh Sabha movement, where you get this sort of this is the definitive identity, the Sikh identity, and so I'd always felt quite excluded from that because of appearance, and like, you know, I was like, well, I don't really know how could I adopt the Kakars without, you know, like how would that? I know that if I decided to grow my hair, wear a pug, go, you know, I'm a Dadi, like the amount of praise that would get from aspects
You'd
of the
be
community.
pushed up higher than anybody who's brown.
Exactly, yeah.
You'd be put on a higher pedestal.
And does that,
which is
that the
conflicting?
But not the reason. One of the reasons that comes across. Now we were talking about just off here about the 3 Gode Sikhs, that video from
right, yeah.
Chardi Kala Jatha didn't like Kirtan at Harmandir Sahib. I think what happens is when you're born, and we talked about this term Sunday Sikhs, which is when you're born into Sikhi, you have a Sikh sounding surname, you go to Gurdwara, you do a little bit. Maybe you don't have an appreciation because you don't value that. Whereas what they tend to try and paint is when somebody who's not Sikh, and you're different because you are fully Punjabi, but somebody who comes into it, they're going in for the right reasons, they're very much connected, and that's why they get put on this like, "Idda hona chahiye Sikh." This is the model. But you're right, it's not fair.
But so I was like, you know, is that really gonna, you know, help with what I was understanding from the philosophy of like, you know, loss of ego, loss of pride, and all those sorts of things. But anyway, the thing that really changed my relationship was discovering the diverse history of Sikhi, of like, you know, and I think this was, I came across the history of the Nanak Panthis, and, you know, the history that predates the British colonial period where all Sikh identity sort of collapses into the Khalsa identity. I don't think this is necessarily as true in India, like where you still got like strong, like different traditions like Udasi and like other
Sampradas, there's many.
But particularly within the UK, it's like there's one way to be a good Sikh. And that
you see that a lot.
And that's never really chimed with me. But then discovering the history of the Nanak Panthis, discovering there was a diversity of Sikh identity and ways to sort of live as a Sikh. You know, the fact that, you know, how would you, I don't know, how would you classify by Mardana?
Yeah.
Like,
and all the puggets are written.
And all the puggets, like, how
and you're
would
like,
you classify?
are they not Sikh?
Yeah, are they not Sikh? Yeah.
And I had this debate, and I'm like, that's the point. Like, we have these ascribed titles, and then you have the thing that Grandad never said he was Sikh. You know, that's a commonly said thing. Like, you know, there's no Muslim, there's no Hindu.
Yeah,
it's just you're trying to explain the unexplainable, and this is when I have these
Sikh nights, learning. That's all it is, isn't it?
That's all it is. And how do you describe the indescribable? So when my answer often now, in like say Sikhi classes, when people, sometimes, and it's fine, kids are Christian, but they ask questions for the sake of asking questions, and then I'm like, bro, you just need to go and experience this, which Guru Nanak Dev Ji is explaining Japji Sahib, and when you experience it, you'll get it. All your answers will be, you know, answered, but the experience, you have to focus on the experience.
And that's it. So it's funny, like my first sort of real sense of feeling some sort of connection to, I don't know, the oneness, did come from like, you know, walking in the mountains and suddenly being in awe of what I was seeing. And particularly because that video, that's the Satpal Singh video that I saw, he uses the example of like, you know, you go out into nature and you see the mountains, you see the lakes, and you say like, oh, Waheguru, what an amazing mountain, what amazing like that you have made. And he says, do you ever say, Waheguru, I see you in the mountain, I see you in the river? And actually my experience was of feeling incredibly moved and overwhelmed by the beauty that I was experiencing in nature and what I was seeing, and just felt very connected, and realizing that the experience of that was really an experience of self and other sort of merging, the recognition of beauty as a sort of an experience of the divine. And I've discovered that now in other, when I've done gone like deep dives into other forms of other approaches to like non-duality and you know, and it's all in other, and that's why like, you know, like I find the iconography of the Hindu gods like and like Tantra like very appealing. I find a lot, I get a lot from that. And then you see the same metaphors and ideas and imagery is being used in Gurbani as well. So it's like I don't feel you can separate these things out so strictly. And I think it was because there was that idea of separation that I sort of inherited or been taught, that sense of like, well, this is a Hindu, this is a Sikh, this is a Muslim, this is Christian, this is Jewish. I felt that I was having to sort of pick, and I just didn't feel like, well, I was like, well, that's why I was like, well, maybe then culturally Sikh. But then actually discovering that rich history, the diversity, and what the texts and what the gurus were actually describing, I was like, well, that I do. I really strongly
identify. Universal principles.
And they are universal principles, and it is an approach. And I'm like, so for me, my connection, it's like, it's a way also of maintaining and feeling connected to my Punjabi heritage, because, you know, there's a lot to be said. You know, Punjabi is not Sikh and Sikh is not Punjabi, but there is a very strong shared foundation. And so for me, it's like, well, it is a way it's sort of a spiritual philosophical approach that resonates with me. It keeps me connected to that, my Punjabiness. But then I'm very interested in like tantric Hinduism and Buddhism and the parallels. And, you know, when I was in Nepal recently and I went to Swayambhunath, the Buddhist stupa, and that was the first time I'd seen the eyes of Buddha with the nose. And I saw the nose and I was like, it's an ick. The nose is an ick. And those were connections that I was starting to, and I only really scratched the surface of it in the final chapter of the book. But I think that's where I'm sort of, most people have asked, you know, have you got a second book? And I'm like, that to me, the idea of one, not both, that sort of final chapter where, you know, sort of recognizing.
That could be a chapter, that could be the title of a new book.
Well, that's what I've been thinking about,
Like the next iteration.
To Indian doctor, coined here on the show. You've seen it now, okay?
It's perfect.
Because I think that, you know, that, I mean, that's at the heart of, you know, of like tantric thought, but also, in Gurbani, like the idea that there is a great, you know, I can't remember the exact bit of Japji Sahib, but he talks about like the many rivers that flow into the sea, like everything's written with the one flowing pen, you know, Wadi Kalam, like that. It is a vast oneness that presents itself as a multiplicity. And I think that the idea of both not half is recognizing myself as being whole and multiple. And then the end of this journey has really been me getting to a point where I recognize myself as whole and multiple, but ultimately part of a great and ultimate oneness.
Beautifully put, man. I wanted to change the little tone a little bit for here to something a bit lighter. Why are your skits always about your Thaiyaji? Why are they not about somebody else?
Who is Thaiyaji?
Do you actually have a Thaiyaji?
No, I don't have a Thaiyaji. And this is why.
Fictitious, huh? So nobody can ring him up.
Thaiyaji would have been like, I didn't say that to you.
But why pick Thaiyaji?
But why Thaiyaji? Like, the reason I picked Thaiyaji was because my grandfather, so Grandad, was Thaiyaji to all my cousins.
You're watching.
So he's not necessarily, I mean, like I say, I spoke to my granddad mainly in English, so it's not like he is that character. But I think it was like, I'd always seen in my experiences in India and like family more generally, that sort of like deferential reverence for the, you know, the elder brother. Had always
leader of the family.
Had always been directed towards my grandfather. And I'd always heard Thaiyaji
all the time. That makes
in
sense.
those settings. And also, it meant that nobody could accuse me of
very good
taking the mick.
You're right. It is a very strong rishta. Now we want you to weigh in on something as well. So my daughter Ekam was born, and so Indy and his wife Sanj obviously have to be denoted titles. Okay. Indy wants to be a chacha.
Mhm.
He's claiming friendship to me first.
No. I don't want to be.
Well, here we go. He gets very
It
sensitive
is-
about this.
It is the correct rishta to your daughter. There is no challenging this.
He's getting a bit heated now. It's not right. Whereas Sanj wants to be Massi. So he's a chacha to my
Mhm.
daughter, and she's a Massi
Her
version of
argument
chachi.
is there's no good chachas or chachis. Like being a chachi is just like a bit of a
Lion King.
scheming
Lion
person in
King,
the background.
who is Mufasa? Oh, sorry, no, who's Mufasa? Who's Scar?
Scar.
To Simba.
He's a chacha, isn't
There's no good example of chachi.
Yeah.
Now, the only one that messed up with our theory, Harry Potter,
he? Yeah.
Aunt Petunia, is who to Harry?
Massi.
Oh,
It's Massi, right?
he must be.
And,
Massi.
and then when we heard that, we
I've never thought about
Yeah,
denoting titles to Harry Potter characters.
It messes with
This is
your
what he
head,
does in his
man.
spare
Great
time.
exercise.
So then I said to Indy, ਅਸੀਂ JK Rowling ਨੂੰ ਚਿੱਠੀ ਲਿਖਣੀ ਹੈ ਆ ਰਿਸ਼ਤਾ ਚੇਂਜ ਕਰ ਦੇ ਮਾਸੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਚਾਚੀ ਬਣਾ ਦੇ or ਤਾਈ maybe as well, right? But I find, I don't know what your experience has been, a Massi is way cooler than chachi. Massi is way closer to and a mama. Mama.
You know, I didn't really grow up with using the titles.
Because of that side.
Yeah, because so most of those, because it basically comes
That's a
down
good
to
point.
like your mum's side, your dad's side,
Yeah, auntie. Yeah,
and
it's
like
different.
Oh, he's screwed the other way now, isn't he? He's
Yeah,
all like
yeah.
that side.
So are you a purist? Are you side with me, Fudgy?
I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Chachi.
But hang on, like it's an age thing as well. So like, who's the elder?
He's hang
No,
on,
he's-
out of me and
The
my wife.
question really is who became friends first? That's the question.
I
'Cause
became
then
friends
they
with
can
you
claim the
first.
rishta. Is it my wife's
Right.
sister, Massi, Sanj? Or are we friends first, therefore he becomes chacha?
We are
That's
friends.
basically what we're
This is not debatable. We
I
are
mean,
friends
do
first.
these terms even like technically apply between like?
Do you know what? He's
Yeah.
asked a few of his friends the same thing, and a lot of his friends' wives are saying, I want to be Massi. He's starting a movement.
So we've come up with a
Yeah.
new term now, Jassi.
Just
Jassi is the new term. The thing is,
What is this, man?
The thing is, I've been really honest with him. Although this is technically correct that Indy and I knew each other first.
Right.
I only started liking Indy because of his wife.
Hold on.
100%
Hold on.
fact.
No. That's not true. That's not true.
Here
That's
we
not
go.
true. I was your videographer for time before you met Sanj.
Didn't like you.
Yeah, you did. I spent so many car rides with you. If you didn't like me, you would have sat me off, man. Time ago.
No.
Don't try this.
difficult. Look,
maybe you're just a very good videographer.
you-
Maybe. No, I
He
was
was
actually
like
really
that,
bad looking back at it.
yeah.
I'll watch it. I'm like,
But you know what it was?
That's not
He was
good.
cheap. I didn't
I
know
was
what
very
good
cheap.
was, and we learned lots of stuff. This is all pre-podcast stuff, right?
yeah, way pre.
So we developed a relationship then.
Yeah.
So Master?
No.
No.
Well, that conversation will carry
Yeah,
on.
I remember the first time I came across Mastarji because it was one that hadn't come up until I was like visiting, one of Biji's sisters,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
with my dad, and so she was talking to my dad about his Mastarji, like, and I was like. And I was like, does everyone just refer to him as the master in this house? I thought it was just the Master G. I thought it was like
just above Thaiyaji.
yeah. I was just like the master. I was like, what a title!
That's
I didn't
fantastic.
realize
I
it
want
was
that title.
Master G. Like,
That's tremendous.
Here's a quick one for both of you.
Go on.
Right. So my Masi's here from India, right? What does my daughter call my Masi? What's that rishta?
Grand Massi.
Punjabi ji.
So what,
Grand
your-
Masi.
Your
Buddy
Massi.
Yeah. So my daughter
Bibi Massi.
calls my mum Dadi,
Yeah.
right? And now this is my mum's sister, so my Masi. What does my daughter call my Masi?
If you want to simplify
Dadi
it,
number
it's-
two.
yeah, if you want to simplify it, it's
Literally.
Dadi again, really, if you want to simplify it.
So the technical apparently is
Yeah.
Dadi Masi. You put those
Oh,
two things
Dadi
together.
Masi, is
yeah,
it?
yeah, that's it. And I was like,
Right.
oh wow, I'm learning so many things. Here's another one that doesn't make sense to me, and this actually supports my point. What do you call my mum and dad?
Massi Massi.
Right. Why is it Masi Masi and why isn't it Chachi
Because
Chacha?
it is a universal term if you're unsure.
Why does it default to Masi Masi then? Because people
because
like
it's-
Masi
because
Masi.
because it's an easier thing to sort of apply. No matter who you know, you just default
Chachi.
to Massi Massi.
like inherently
That way,
insult
there
Because
is
they're
no
nice.
problem.
They're nice people.
However,
You wouldn't call my mum Chachi, would you? Call my dad Chacha, would you?
that doesn't
Exactly.
make sense.
Why doesn't it make sense? Why does Masi make sense then?
Because
You're
Massi-
saying your mum and my mum.
Okay. Here's why.
Oh.
Massi makes sense because it doesn't matter about age, up or down. Correct.
Correct.
Right. So if I'm doing cha-cha, I'm taking a risk here. I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
are
that's
you,
true.
Are you younger
So
than
then
my
what you
parents?
would do out of
older?
respect is you just go to Tai Tai, but no one does that either.
No, because they don't want to be known as the older one. Maybe they're like, are you calling me old? I'm sorry.
yeah.
Didn't your Dadi say to you earlier?
That is a
don't
good
call
point.
me Nanni. Don't call me Bibi. Born.
You got it.
Massi, Masser. There you go. See, cool.
Anyway, have you ever used a Punjabi chat-up line?
I mean, I don't think a line as such. It's more just the ability to speak can be the chat up in itself.
Just drops into it. It's like, hi, so I'm Jassa. Tu kidda fir? We came up with Joey's "How you doing" in Punjabi. Ready?
Go on then.
So you do your bit, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
At the end, you just go, Anji.
Anji.
That's it.
It's just Anji.
He gave me a line. We'll give it to Jassa now, right? Live on a podcast, no preparation. How do you say this in Punjabi?
Oh no.
Something like "You're so beautiful" or whatever, or "When I look at you, you take my breath away," or "My heart stops." My heart stops when I look at you. Oh, I don't know.
ਇਹਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਕੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਦਿਲ ਰੁਕ ਗਿਆ.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, literally, just something like that. I did that, and then I did the Hanji at the other. Hanji. Oh, what's the pre-frame I use as well?
Which one?
Oh yeah. Again, I don't know where my brain went, but he told me to do it, and I started. My opening word is Benji. He was like,
I don't know
bro.
why he said the Benji.
I was like, you're flexing with this lady, yeah, but you're starting with Benji. I was like, yeah, I just don't know. My head just goes. Oh,
Maybe you shouldn't
It's
do
gotta be
that.
respectful.
You shouldn't start with the Benji, man.
Maybe you're in the Langar Hall. Who knows? Like,
don't be doing
You gotta
that,
be
man.
respectful there, man.
Yeah.
Imagine going to someone saying that in a longer hall. When a relative or person asks you at a wedding, why haven't you found someone yet? What do you say?
Jasse tu kudi nahi labhi hale, like, what problem?
And it's always goody as well. Which is
yeah.
interesting. It's always like,
oh, bro, I don't think auntie are ready for like they're not gonna ask partner, are they? They're like, dude, like ki karna preference ke like that. They're not
they're
there
not
yet,
gonna
man.
take
That
it there,
said,
like,
you know,
straight
Bibi
goody.
was wonderful. You know, like
Yeah.
with you know, my sister's identifies as queer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Within like yeah, and I'm always conscious that I shouldn't speak on behalf of my sister on these topics, but you know, BG was always very, very open and welcoming.
What was her
and
understanding of
encouraging.
that? If she grew up in a world where that didn't exist, like mainstream,
I don't know. It's like, well,
I think, do you feel she got it?
yeah. I think
okay,
yeah, she did, because also like regardless of whether it was, you know, people were out and open, you know, those identities, those modes of expression and love have existed for millennia.
Exactly.
So it's not
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
it's
not
not
like
new.
it's not new.
But it's whether we find a way to express it.
But if, you know, BG's thing, and this is, I think, very apparent in the way in which she raised us, is that for her it was fundamentally and very truly about love, and so she found it very easy to sort of understand that, you know, that you know, the phrase "love is" used a lot as a sort of
blanket term.
yeah, as a way of sort of, I'm sort of struggling for my language now, but the, you know, within the Pride movement, within sort of campaigning for LGBTQ plus rights. Yeah. But BG always lived love is love. Like that was her sort of guiding philosophy.
She's probably sitting there thinking, I don't care, you're still my granddaughter.
Yeah. You know, and I think had my sister not met someone when she did, like, I'm sure, like, had BG like met somebody at the Gurdwara who like had a daughter or somebody that wanted to be introduced, she would have got on it. Like,
So has anybody ever asked you at like a wedding, have you ever met anyone?
I haven't had that sort of pressure. I
Man,
did.
you got
like,
it good, man.
Yeah. I don't know why though. Like, I mean, I did get this. So I did. So BG, like, you know, quite a few years back before she died, got a call like in the middle of the day from BG, which was like slightly worrying, because I was like, I don't normally get a call from you around like,
reason,
yeah, what's going on? And I picked it and I was like, oh, hi BG. And she was like, Jassa? I was like, yeah, and Galson.
Oh,
Straight in.
pre-frame.
No
bang.
Sasikar, no nothing.
Girlfriend here.
Nice. 1, 2, 3.
Straight in.
And I was like,
What have you heard? What have you seen, BG?
I was like, I don't really know to
You have to
understand
answer
my
this
current
quickly, correctly.
sort of situationship that I'm in. Like, how do I was like, oh, I guess no. And she's like, all right. And she was trying to set me up with somebody, a granddaughter of a friend of hers at the Gurdwara. And in a weird way, I'd never expected that to be part of my experience.
Mm.
Because I'd always just assumed
That's a rite of passage, man.
yeah, but I think I'd thought, but because I look the way I do,
Yeah.
that would never. I'd never really thought about it. Like there'd never been a lot of pressure or any sort of conversation around it. And then suddenly, so weirdly, I was like, I felt really. It was like I was like, oh, like I feel. I feel so seen. Like being part of my identity is being recognised.
I'm a part of it.
Yeah, I'm getting the pressure.
Punjabi rishte now,
Yeah. But that was the only. I think it was just because it was. It was a sort of a convenient connection, but that was
connection.
yeah. It didn't go beyond that. Though she did obviously like after Granddad died, she was like, he'd picked out his suit, and he just wanted to see you like get married before he died, and now he's dead. It was like,
Baby, don't repeat it for me.
I was like, oh. But yeah. So I had some of that, but I always took it with a
with a heavy pinch of salt.
Pinch of salt. Like
we have a closing tradition on this podcast.
Yeah.
In the words of Stephen Bartlett. I'm kidding. We ask, I guess, some quick fire questions. So say the first question. I'm going to ask you a question. Give me the first answer that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Question 1. Sherwani or 3-piece suit?
Sherwani.
Moje or shoes?
Come on.
Moja, I think. Yeah.
Ooh. There's cuts in the back of your feet, man.
Yeah, I know. But
Plaster pana penda.
Mithai or chocolate?
Sorry?
Mithai or chocolate?
Oh, Mithai, yeah.
The first voice note he sent us. I don't know if you remember.
What did I say?
My yaak davire mein the mithai khana. I was like, bro, we know you're Punjabi, man.
I was like, you got to flex on me, man. It's all good.
Mithai khana.
Oh yeah, that was because of my cousin's wedding.
Yeah. What's the most elite Punjabi rishte in your extended family?
We've just had a chat about this. Remember?
Elite.
Yeah.
Punjabi.
We'll explain it as in, so not your mum, not your dad, not your nanny, not your dada, like the chacha tai types of people.
But what do you mean by like elite?
The
Like,
title, like which is the best? Which is the best?
title.
Which is the best?
Right.
If you want a title to be achieved and put to your name,
It was
what
Master
would
G,
it be?
isn't he?
Yeah, Master G.
Fuck's
Master G.
End the podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Master G. Yeah, there we go.
I love that.
What is your favorite film or show you've starred in?
Oh, that I've starred in. Oh wow. I mean, Some Girls was just such a massive game changer. Like, so I think that's yeah, definitely up there. That said, though, I mean, it's like, it wasn't a massive part in Peaky Blinders, but it's such a flex to be like,
Mate,
Peaky Blinders.
I watched that scene again. I watched that scene again yesterday, and I was like,
yeah,
bruh,
Like
just
that's
say
him,
it.
innit?
Yeah.
Yes, my brother.
Yeah.
Okay, best film of all time.
Best what? Sorry.
Film of all time.
Best film of all time.
Yeah.
Wow,
That's a question, isn't it?
that is hard.
Okay.
Best film of all time.
He's a Lord of the Rings
man.
fan, you know, as well.
Huh?
He's a Lord of the Rings fan as well. I was very happy learning that. It's hard to do that.
I think I would.
Okay, how about this? Yeah, you've had a rough time, and you want to watch a film to make you feel better.
Fast and
Which
Furious
film is
5.
it? Bam! That's it.
Fast
That's all I
5.
want to hear.
Wow.
Fast 5.
This is Brazil.
I would never, ever.
Oh, wow.
If you gave me a list of 100 films, I would not have guessed that.
I would never guess that. See, if I had to answer that question, that's a very different question.
That's a very
of all
different
time.
question.
I was trying to
yeah.
make it easier. It's
For
cool.
me, Jet Li's Fearless, watch that.
Okay.
Very good. It's all in it's Cantonese.
See, my answer's the same. Interstellar.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I worked with David Jesse.
Really?
Yeah.
Dropping that.
Yeah.
Dropping
He's
that.
we connected a lot actually on similar sort of, you know, so the film, I did a BBC film called The Whale with both David Jesse and John Boyega.
Yeah.
And I spent so much time feeling such a sense of connection with their experiences of growing up.
Yeah.
You know, with David Jesse from Ghanaian background, with John Boyega's Nigerian background. And it was just like, there were just so many wonderful parallels in like our experiences, which is why I think really speaks to sort of like, and we've spoken today in like a very sort of Punjabi,
Real
South
stuff,
Asian
yeah.
specific context, but I think like the whole Both Not Half stuff sort of really expands beyond that, because of the universality of those experiences. But if I did have to say, so a film that really changed how I thought of myself and how I thought of the world. So I don't, because it's very hard to say like what's just a favorite film because there's so many different reasons for liking something. But Dead Poets Society definitely had a huge impact on on how I thought of myself and how I wanted to, go about living my life, like really tangibly, just being like, oh wow,
there's that, and then there's Fast and Furious 5.
That's the way it is.
Yeah,
I mean, then you got Shawshank Redemption, which is just like a classic, and
Shutter Island.
Yeah, I mean, Muppet Christmas Carol is probably the film I've watched the most every year, Christmas Eve. Like, so there's
variety.
There's a
big
diversity to my.
That's what the whole book is about, man.
And final question: who is your favorite brown content creator?
My favorite brown content creator. Is this me having to like pick between you now?
No.
Is that what the point of that
brown content creator?
No Punjabi question. No question, my friend.
I think I would probably have to. It's hard. I mentioned them both in the book, but like probably Just Rain because of discovering his YouTube channel.
Desi Parents and
I discovered it. I came across them at a time when I was sort of seeking a sense of community and connection that went beyond friends and family, and the Desi Parents and thing. It suddenly felt like there was this modern, contemporary, my generation of people in the diaspora that I could feel connected to. Yeah. And, it was really Just Rain stuff. And also Guz Khan, his content as well, that inspired me to do my first ever skit.
Good.
Bro, and how you putting corn in the dal, man?
Whoa. we are running out of time. Can you quickly do this?
Like, it went viral because people are like, you don't put corn in the dal, man. So in the spirit of the show, listen, it's been a very warm day today. Sir? Kholo. Sir, you might need this, sir. Cold water. Sir, you never know. It is very cold. I've been on the holiday, right, in Cambridge. I had to pack this pani and then this ice pack.
That around all
There's
day.
been the freezer, and I'm like, how am I going to get the tanda pani then? And my wife wanted to use a bag for baby food. Ice cold pani.
This is amazing.
Asi soch asi gift ki de bande liye pani,
You're welcome. Just tell people how they can find you, bro.
Thank you so much. Sorry?
Tell people how they can find you.
Which camera am I on?
That one straight.
This one.
Which one's up?
I think I'm looking. Yeah. Should I hold it up?
Yeah,
what should I do?
Go for it.
This is the book. It's called Both Not Half. It is available pretty much anywhere you get your books. And also, I would really recommend, if you've been enjoying listening to me and this conversation on the podcast, I really recommend the audiobook. I read it myself. We also put a lot of time and effort went into making the audiobook its own sort of unique experience. It's got music in there, some tabla, there's some sound effect stuff. And also some of the quotes that we mentioned in our conversation, like Satpal Singh's video. I was very lucky to get permission from the original audio. So from people like Satpal, so we got original audio in there as well. But yeah, honestly, just wherever you get it. If you get it, if you enjoy it, please tell people about it. Books like this are very difficult to sort of get the attention. Well, to get published, they're very difficult to get the attention and the traction that they need. It can be very difficult as well. If you loved it, please do drop a review wherever you purchased it. And think about reviews also in the same way that you would think about giving an Uber review.
Yeah.
Anything less than 5 stars does not help the algorithm.
Leave them alone.
So,
Leave it out. If you didn't like it, it's fine.
Please do critical responses on your blogs, but when it comes to leaving like the star reviews, just hit 5 stars, or just if you didn't enjoy it, then
give that a miss.
Then give it a miss. But yeah, that would be a huge.
What's your social at?
Huge help. Social ats are @official Jassa. So that's Yeah. You know, I did official Jassa as my social media handles, like back when it was cool to be official.
Yeah.
And then it became uncool. And I was like, well, I'm not going to change it because I've got my blue ticks. And
Yeah.
I
status.
status and I can't change it now. And then Elon took all the blue ticks away on Twitter. And I was like, I'm official. I'm like, I got this.
Bro, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a real joy.
We will see you next week in a bit. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys for watching. Check out the rest of our episodes here and don't forget to subscribe here. We'll see you guys on the next one.